Scott. Here. Ms. Odell.
Here.
And Ms. Driggs. Here.
Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the presentation of the following budgets: code enforcement, planning board, zoning, debt service. And we already know the treasurer's not going to be here, so who's going to lead off? Anybody?
Steve.
Steve, you want to lead off?
Sure.
You just have to tell me what department.
Planning board.
Okay, thank you. The floor is yours, sir.
Well, I have rather a small budget compared to many of the departments in town, but I guess we can go line by line, starting at the top on the worksheet. Do you have the worksheet that,
No.
you didn't get a copy of that?
No,
So-
this is our line by line.
Yeah.
It's the
We have
same.
that.
That's
Okay.
what she's.
All right.
Oh, okay, then that's fine.
Starts with administrative officers.
Yeah, I'm just looking to see if it lines up with the way I have it listed here. I listed it by department number because I know that in the past, that's how it's been presented, but it appears that it's in a different order this year. So, but I have it both ways.
You just kind of skim through it and highlight major differences from this year, or major issues that you want us to know about.
Well, as far as what I proposed, there's hardly any major differences. There would be a difference in the comp plan mapping, update mapping, because that was a one-time charge. The maps we're in the middle of rewriting the comprehensive planning plan, so the maps have to be updated. And that mapping service was a line item of $2,000 last year, which is not a line item this year, because we covered that in last year's budget.
Okay, so that's fine.
Doesn't it?
Right, so that's just,
Okay.
It's not done. Is that going to be done by
well,
June 30th?
yes. Yeah, most of the maps are in.
Paid.
There's a couple of maps that, the future land use map still has to be worked out, but that's done after the comp plan is finished.
Okay, so there was no
So that will be, right. So that'll be taken care of in this fiscal year. Administrative officer stays the same, no change. Supplies and miscellaneous, we reduced that 2 years ago from 1,800 to 1,500. That stays the same. We used just over 1,500 actually last year. Professional and technical services is a line item that we use for surveyors, engineers, our consulting engineers, Commonwealth, when we need to use them on items that are not covered under an applicant that's in front of us, because those are reimbursable, but there are other things that are not covered by that contract. So it'd be outside their contract and wouldn't be covered by an applicant who's in front of us. Yes, ma'am.
I noted that this current year, in the first quarter, $3,982 was transferred from that account to that account. So you're going more than whatever the pittance they left you on that?
I'll have to accept that account. They don't tell me when they do But if,
That was last year?
that was since June 30th?
It was, no, June 30th.
Right.
No, it was the first quarter, 9/15, 9/15, it was the first quarter. Isn't that the first quarter?
Yes.
Yeah, the transfer, 3,918.
Out of the 5,000.
Right, but it was,
Yes,
okay.
so I'm just wondering if he says he needs.
No, I'd still say 5,000 is, should be sufficient. I wouldn't ask for any more than that on that line item. I will ask to be made aware of any transfers that are done, out of the items that we have.
Oh, because, first quarter transfers, I mean, you don't even know if you're gonna need the money.
That's early on in the year.
Yeah.
Education and seminars stays the same at 500. Computer upgrades stays the same at 500. The comp plan update consultant, I've asked for $5,000 for that line item. Last year, we had 10, but we're winding that down, and I anticipate, well, first of all, I asked for that because I don't know there's going to be a planner in place. So that $5,000 would be on any work that needs to be done after the state reviews the comp plan that we send to them, and they send it back and tell us what's missing, what they want changed. There are a number of new issues this year that need to be put into the comp plan, so that would be used for professional consultant to work us through the edits that the state requires.
If you don't have that, just as long as we're on that line, if you don't have that funded, how will that work get done, or what won't get done?
Well, it won't. It'll have to come from somewhere, because we'll need a professional planner or planning service
When they hire the planner.
to get us through that.
And when is it due?
It's due to the state in May, and then they review it, and then they return it to us with any corrections, updates, any edits that they want, anything that they might deem missing out of the plan, which hopefully when we supply it to them, there won't be anything missing, but I know the last time we did it, when we wrote the comp plan, it was a several-month process between the time that we sent it to them and then the time that they officially accepted it, because it kept going back and forth.
Right.
So you've got $10,000 in the budget this year.
Yes.
To do that with.
That's contracted. That's a contract with our planning consultants this year.
Is there a planner?
Right. Were you given a reason as to why the town administrator didn't follow through with your request?
No.
Could I
Oh,
interject?
It's rather a sizable discrepancy
Yes.
between 17
When
and
there's,
40.
and there's, yeah,
I
and there's two more.
understand. Yeah, I just got a copy of what he submitted Tuesday afternoon. I didn't know, I wasn't made aware of what he submitted to the council, and I was not aware of the changes that he made to
Okay.
the recommendations I
We all
had.
the consultants in lieu of hiring a planner.
Yes.
Because he said if we have a planner, we do not need outside consultants as well. That was one of the ways he sold the planner idea to the council, so.
It's in here somewhere, I read it.
Yeah, that
Well,
works.
that's what I'm saying, this is his rationale. I'm saying.
Yeah, but that works as far as a planner is concerned, but one of the professional and technical line is for other than a planner's job and
Right,
duty.
right, I get that.
Okay.
And you're talking about the major update, when you're talking about the update consultant, you're talking about the broad
The
update.
rewrite of the whole plan. So the next line item is the subdivision regulation amendment advertising, $500. That's half of what we asked for last year. The line after that, consulting services zoning, $15,000 line item. That is a line item because we don't have a planner. So if we don't have a planner, we need professional planning services to work with us to get through that. Once the comprehensive plan is adopted, then there's an 18-month period the state gives you to rewrite your zoning to make it comply with the comprehensive plan. And that's a quick timeline.
Is the hiring of how long does a planner have to be on board before he or she can do that rewriting? I mean, how much much experience do they need in the town, or is it something that's just inherent in every planner and they know how to do it from scratch?
I would think if a planner has a vast experience for being a planner, that he's been through that before, for whatever cities or towns he's worked for. And I don't know, there's also state rules and regs that come into play, and it depends now if the planner's from within the state or a planner's from without a state. I think the learning curve would be a little bit longer if they're an out-of-state person than they are from an in-state person, because they'd be used to all of the state rules and regs.
That's, you kind of highlighted my concern. That's a big if.
John, one thing, the planner is going to be working with legal counsel, whoever that legal counsel
Right.
is. And hopefully they're experienced in zoning rewrites. So it's not just a planner, but they also need to bring in the case law on these things.
Yeah.
You just don't write a plan that doesn't have, it's not based upon state law and state court cases.
I agree, and the problem that I have is the history of Tiverton hiring top-notch experienced people that can walk right in the door and jump right at it. Track record to me has not been outstanding.
It's because they weren't qualified to begin
Well, it
with.
was supposed to be,
Well, that's what I mean, so,
I get it.
yeah, so that's why
You just
I have
wasted money on
I have
both
concern
ways.
over this as to
He's gone.
what's the fallback position if we don't have a plan?
it was supposed to
Then to-
have been hired the last
We need to use outside consulting. The Cecil Group is who we're using to do the comprehensive plan rewrite,
Pay benefits.
so we would probably continue with them.
If we had had
But
that.
somebody needs to give us the money.
But
So, I said that wrong. The town needs to get that money into your budget so you can pay, or the town can pay some consultant to do this. It's got to come from somewhere.
yes.
Okay.
And with that, there's still, I mean, actually, that would cover the zoning rewrite issues, but the day-to-day issues of not having a planner would be, that's not even covered in this budget, because we currently don't have anybody.
Right.
So in the past, we had Kate Nishout, who worked as a part-time, part of her time was devoted to a planner's job, a planner's duties, and then as administrative officer and as the clerk for the planning board. So the 15,000 probably would not cover the day-to-day duties, but that would be under the planning department and not the planning board.
Right. Okay, a good point.
Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
If there had been a town council meeting when they had the snow, they were supposed to be hiring a planner, in actual fact. That the paper was on the desk there.
It's on the agenda.
So,
It is.
so I
Okay.
believe it's going to be, you know, we have to work out what else you need besides that to the administrator, but I think this is to hire.
Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but even going back several years when we had a full-time planner, we still had to use consultants from time to time.
Yes, we did.
There are certain specialty things that if you hire, speaking frankly, if you hire a planner for a town, or for a town the size of Tiverton, you're not going to get somebody that's really deep and broad and experienced. Just.
Most likely not, yeah.
because we can only afford to pay so much. So I think the administrator is being naive in thinking that we can get by with zero consulting fees. And perhaps naive is too strong of a word. Perhaps it's just he's inexperienced with Tiverton and some of the complexities we have. Although we're small, because we're coastal, we get into all sorts of things, as you well know. So I think that even if we have a full-time planner, I think there's going to be cases where we're going to need some backup help.
So we have in the past, yes.
And with difference to Ms. Durfee, with her legal background, the consultants for the planning folks tend to charge a whole lot less than the attorneys tend to charge us.
Well, that's true, but you have, oftentimes the engineers do not know case law on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You've got to have both.
Yeah, you have to have both,
Yeah.
and I agree with you with regard to the use of consultants.
Yeah.
Stormwater regulations, a
Yep.
lot of it's state-driven, you've got to have understanding of
Yep.
where things play out.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, my sense of that reductions in the amount requested is to me not very realistic. I can't imagine going through a whole year without some consulting services in that regard. But that's me.
So would that be true for both the consultant for the comprehensive plan update and the consulting services zoning, where the administrators put 0? In both cases, you think you're going to need some consulting?
I can't imagine not, but Steve?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah,
We need
I
both.
can't imagine. There's just way too much complexity for one person. And especially, we tend to get newly minted planners. We're not getting people with 20 years of experience at a high level at the salary that we're offering. So I just think cutting consultant services down to 0 is naive.
It's not something that you can skimp on. It needs to be done well.
Somebody has to tell the town administrator that.
Well, that's what we do. That's one of our roles, and I just wrote that down on my notes.
Could the whole
that-
function be done by consultants rather than having a planner hired?
It's tough to do day-to-day
Yeah.
work and get what a day-to-day planner would do in town, done by consultants. Consultants are project-related services, and really not on a day-to-day working of a town.
Plus, I don't think consultants get a flavor for the town by not working here every day, immersed in.
Not unless there's a continuity.
Yeah, and if you do that with a consultant, throw your whole budget away because
Yes.
it's going to be expensive, far more expensive than what's planned in here, or even far more expensive than what you requested. What are the off-site record storage?
That's a new line item this year, and it's mandated by the state that you have backups. You have to hold on to your records for just about ever from the planning board's point of view. You can't dispose of them. So this building is overutilized. There's no storage left downstairs. And this is where all our records are now. They were brought from Judson Street here. So everything we have, of anything that's going on, for the last 40 years, all our records are here in one building. So if there's ever a fire, you lose everything you have. So it's down to either off-site storage, which could be another town building, another town facility, or a storage that you rent, or the other thing, I know that the clerk's office, I believe, is going through digitizing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
So, again, however you look at it, there would be a fee there,
Right.
either for storage or for scanning and digitizing.
Well, even digitizing is got to be
And
in a fireproof If it's on site, it's gotta be in a fireproof, safe, or whatever, or off-site. So, you're still gonna need storage, but not huge amounts, but, okay,
So that is a new line item this year.
all right.
That has been zeroed out, so it's not,
It wasn't zeroed out by me.
I know that.
Well, yeah, we gathered that.
I have an interesting, well, I think it's an interesting question. If I'm recalling the charter correctly, the planning board reports directly to the administrator. Excuse me, the planning board reports directly to the town council. The administrator really isn't in that managerial loop. So my question is, has the council authorized the administrator to act on their behalf to edit your budget?
I have no idea.
I don't either.
I wasn't aware of the cuts that were made by the administrator to our budget, and I wasn't asked to answer any question to the council.
But I think that's an interesting point, and there's a reason why the administrator is excluded from that chain of command, if you will, because of the complexity and the emotions and the legalities of planning, et cetera. So I think that's something that as a committee we need to think about a little bit. Just where does it come in?
The council is having workshops. In fact, we have one again this Saturday. They had one 2 weeks ago. And they are bringing different departments in. I don't know when the planner or the planning board is going to be on it. It's not this Saturday, I know. But they're continually having workshops to go over with the departments. What
And
the
they-
needs are and review. Because so far you only have administrators recommend.
Well,
You don't
that was gonna be my point.
But
when-
Cecil's point was, is that that's the purview of the administrator of the town council?
Well, they just haven't got to the point, they brought in the DPW, the fire is coming this Saturday, they're working on workshops, and as soon as they schedule, the plan board will let Steve
Well,
know.
there's no liaison here tonight who may be able to answer one of those questions, but neither one of them are here.
Well, they are having workshops though, that
Yeah,
one.
no,
so
I know,
it is
I'm
gonna
saying,
come at some
to
point.
answer the question, Dave's in the audience, or, from the...
Well, we'll sort through all that as we go
Yeah.
forward.
I think those, rightly or wrongly, I think the administrator has to prepare the budget.
Yes.
And
Yeah, that's fine.
aside from the treasurer and the town clerk,
That's right, ma'am.
so whatever our disagreements, I think that is his role, his or her role.
Yeah, and that's, and because that's up to that's up to the town council based on input from planning, based on input from the town administrator to recommend their budget.
Yes.
And they'll make those changes if they see fit.
And we can
Depends how-
disagree.
Depends on how good a salesman Steve is.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'm going to skip to the next page. I'm struck by the fact, Mr. Hughes, that your public stenographer has been remarkably constant over a multi-year period. And since you have absolutely no idea what your workload's going to be, that's got to be sort of...
That's zoning.
That's under zoning.
I
Yeah.
didn't read my heading. I'll save that question for later. It's still there, since they don't know what
I
that
didn't have an answer for it, so I'm glad it's under zoning.
Anything else for Steve while we have him cornered? All right, Steve, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Be careful walking out there. Who's going to volunteer to be next?
Nobody here.
There's nobody else than Nancy.
Steve, is there anything you can help us with on the planning department side, or is that out of your bailiwick?
Steve?
Is there anything you can help us with on the planning department?
I really can't,
Okay,
no. I don't know those line items at all.
okay.
Well, at least with the planning department.
The
The only thing I
salary.
know is that some of the items are just contracted, like the photocopier is a lease, it's usually a it's a set item. The telephone covers both the planning department and the planning board,
Okay,
so, and I don't know the numbers on that at all.
Well, there's al-
Salary and longevity is strictly.
Yeah.
yeah.
There's only $800 difference between the submission and the town manager's recommendation, so we're not,
No, I'm just,
but I don't know what other questions would be in there as to,
I'm curious
What-
about the professional technical
Okay.
services.
okay.
So, and why did education go down? But that's a question for the administrator.
Okay.
Old business?
I guess so.
I guess is there,
I think the budget committee is becoming the redheaded stepchild.
Oh my goodness, don't say that.
no, Sally, no offense intended.
That's the saying, honey, it's nothing to do with you.
There's a difference between redheads and redheads with gold lame shoes that we have to make a differentiation. Okay?
She knows I love her.
Well, I do want to say that Denise was scheduled to come and prepared to come tonight, but she did have a family emergency, so.
That's fine. As I said, we'll get to her. And looking at code enforcement, there's not, the only thing in there is the part-time clerical that was requested and not recommended.
Because we gave them the money last year, and they gave that money to the hire for the,
Oh, is that the one?
Yeah.
That's the one, I remember you mentioning that before, I forgot about that.
So, they gave it $20,000
Raise after 6 months.
That salary and longevity is contractual, that's Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The 10,000, they put,
Part-time clerical, I
instead
went
of
up to
55, they put 65.
You'll notice he cut everyone's supply. There was some comments in his backup somewhere, he wanted to cut all supply accounts by 10%.
yeah, and that,
Now, we're looking into changing that, right? Is that-
Why don't we wait until we have
Yes.
the information?
Cecil, what's your question about the zoning board of review public stenographer?
Just that it's flat, it's level every year for 3 years, and they have no idea what the workload's going to be, so obviously it's a plug number. That's all. Move on.
Yeah, I thought that.
So did we have one this year?
I'm sure we do at some
It's
time.
we only get the transcripts when it is required, and that's, but I want to say that she hasn't even used that much of it this year.
Okay, all right.
When the case goes up on appeal and the
Yeah, and then they
transcript,
charge the.
yes, and that has to be done.
Okay.
Now, all cases will go up on appeal.
Yeah.
Okay,
May I make a request
Yes.
for the
absolutely.
next Thursday? I suppose I could email it, but could we have a copy of the latest
The latest one.
expense and revenue?
Oh, yes, and it's on clerk base every single month, and that's what I'm looking at, the
Yeah.
recent. Yeah, I'm looking at it because it's in this week's packet, and I just pulled
Yep.
it out of my office. But why don't I make sure you get copies of it when
Right, so that would
I meant
be,
to do that, yeah.
That would be January or December?
I'm looking at December.
December
January
is-
wouldn't be done yet.
December
Takes
would,
a-
right, but December
Yeah.
would probably be the most helpful, because then we know where we are halfway through the year.
Yeah.
And I have December, and while you're discussing your old business, maybe I'll print you out some, and then you'll
Okay.
have it, okay?
Okay.
And then then when the audit comes out, we'll have the June, we'll have
When the audit comes
Old
out.
business,
We'll have the
please.
prior fiscal year.
Yeah.
Old business.
Okay. Old business relative to the document presentation. I've called a couple of towns that I have friends there that could get me information, and I didn't get a chance. They haven't called me back, and I didn't get a chance to follow up on
I
it.
have some.
Well, do you have the Lincoln one? Because I was going to ask you if you could get that from your contact in Lincoln.
I could, but I got Portsmouth, Coventry, Warren,
Oh.
Little Compton,
Wow.
Bristol,
That's,
and Burrville.
that sounds like a pretty good cross-section of the state.
And-
Thank you.
I passed them around, but they are all line
And
items.
I went to East Greenwich, and it's the same, it's all
Same,
line
okay.
item.
They're all line
Yep.
items.
Not
Not
one
one
wasn't.
is not.
Not one,
And there's also, there's also going to be a bill introduced to digitize the all budgets and put it on the Secretary of State's website. So in my mind, if they're gonna put it on the Secretary of State's website, most of the towns have line items. Tiverton's gonna look ridiculous having just a big number.
well,
We have it on line item,
Yeah.
it's just not done by the budget committee.
Right, but that's, how you're gonna post that every month on the Secretary of State?
Office of Municipal Affairs, or whatever they're called now, already have a line item budget. They get it from the town administrator. We wouldn't be submitting anything to the Secretary of State.
Right.
That would come from the town
No, but I'm
administrator.
just saying, they're looking for something that all the other towns give them, we won't have it.
But we haven't decided that yet, though.
Yeah.
No, I'm just.
We've talked about
I'm just
it,
saying.
understand,
Thanks for giving
understand.
us. Do
No, I
they,
refer to that professionally as tradition unhampered by progress, but so be it.
Well, you said you wanted to find out
No, no,
what the other
no.
towns are doing, so.
No, not what you did. No, the fact that everybody is doing it like this just smacks me of, I guess you can call it transparency. I'll bow to your definition of it.
well, my
So-
question would be, is this what they give to the voters? Is this like a sample couple of pages of what the voters get?
Well, that's on their website for people to look at, so I'm assuming all the voters can see it.
But we have this,
But,
we would have the same on
So-
the webpage voters could look at.
so if we put it on the webpage, we wouldn't have to print this?
Absolutely. Ours is on the website.
So why do we print this then if it's on the website?
Docket.
Because that's at the polling place.
Yeah,
And it used to be at the FTM. That's for people that want to pick it up and read it and don't go on the website and
Right.
find it.
Can we talk about two separate things here?
Yeah,
There's one thing is the annual budget and the printing of the annual budget and getting it to the state and getting it up online so everybody can see it. Another thing is what do voters see?
Like this?
Exactly. What do they see? How do they see the actions, the budget actions that are recommended summarized? What information is given them to help them make their decisions? That's kind of what I'm thinking of.
Well, my thing is, as a budget committee member, I like to see things the way they, like this, and have it ready at hand instead of calling up or looking another one or having 12 papers. And so, and we are making the decisions, so for us not to have that quickly at hand, and if you can tell us how to do it, I'll be more than happy to help anyone out to do it. I
I'm,
just don't have a
you know,
clue as to.
maybe just following through, and I don't know who can do this, or whether we could enlist the town clerk to take those communities that you have, and we haven't seen copies, so,
Just pass them along.
yeah, is just find out what is presented to the voters when they vote.
Every one of those have to be made public and available to the voters, because I have gone to Portsmouth. I don't know if you said Portsmouth.
Yes.
Portsmouth's one of them.
And if you go online, you've got that whole multi-page.
Online, yes.
And I have gone there and picked up the copy of their budget in prior years, and that's exactly what I've picked up.
Okay, but when
And
somebody
that's
goes
only
in-
Portsmouth, but I'm just saying.
But when somebody
might-
goes in to vote, they're walking into the polling booth, is something handed to them?
Well, I don't know how many of them walk into a polling booth to vote for a budget. There's only a few that do referendums. Some of them still have town meetings. some-
Charleston does,
Charleston does.
I think, doesn't Charleston do a referendum?
I think Kingston does now
There's 4 or
too,
5,
right?
because I just got a blast with the Clerks
I think Kingston
Association.
does.
Someone else is
Maybe
going to
just
start.
find out from those 4 or 5.
What is handed out to us.
Yes,
for the
it's
voters.
what-
Sure. Sure, I can
exactly.
do that. Yes.
and
And let's just take a look at it.
you have enough on your plate, I know, but
To find out.
can you find out how many towns have a FTR?
I think there are about 5.
And I think there's going to be another one, they just emailed me today.
And zero in on those 5 as to how they
Yeah.
prevent it, because that's the ones that really are applicable right now, is,
But I think the law stipulates, does it not, that it has to be made available? Whether it's a budget committee that does it or a council that approves it, does it not have to be made available?
what's the definition of made available?
All
That's
right, I'll
my,
check into it for you.
Well,
is that online, or is that
I will
handouts?
check in, sir.
Thank
you certainly
I don't
have
know.
to have the department totals, because that has to go in the public notice.
Yeah.
And there has to be public hearings on it, whether it's a town council approving
Right.
it or a budget.
It depends on the granularity of the line items.
I will check. ma'am.
Okay.
And I honestly don't know how much time we have left to try to figure out what it is we want to make available. I think we have to make that decision here pretty quickly, so.
While you're on that subject, is it, I don't know past practice of the budget committee, but were preliminary votes taken as we moved along so that we sort of end up with a product?
I-
Final votes? I mean, should we vote, for example, on the town clock's budget?
Yeah.
In a preliminary way, and say, okay, we accept at least in concept, subject to final vote.
That was,
I don't know what happened in the past, so.
I don't know, that was brought up,
We did the first year, and last year we didn't,
we didn't,
for
so.
whatever reason.
Traditionally, it was always done that way.
Is it more orderly to do it that way?
I don't think we should go too much further without doing something that recaps what we,
Exactly.
Done already.
You get down to the end and you go, oh,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, if somebody, if
You know,
people are
the other-
making notes,
The other
that's
thing
fine,
is,
but.
I mean, the 2 years I've been on, town administrator or the acting town administrator was there answering questions. And we haven't been able to ask him anything, because he was here, what, one night, this night?
He's
I mean-
he's away, right?
I mean, he can't be away for all these weeks. I mean, so that's another thing, how can you make a determination if he's, you know,
Well, no,
it's all messed up this week.
I understand that, and I agree with you on that. But I mean, where, for example, we have the town clerk's budget,
Right.
we
Sure,
should be
yeah.
able to take a preliminary.
Now, explain to me the benefit of provisional votes, because I've never been able to understand what the benefit of taking a provisional vote is.
Well, I think from my formal, not experienced view of being on this budget committee, it sort of gives you a tracking as to where you are in the process and how much you've added to the budget. And sort of when you get back, but down to the real final nitty-gritty. I mean, I don't think we need extended discussion. It's more of a, in concept, we agree with you and see where we are.
So is it to kind of determine where there is consensus and where there are difficulties?
Sure. I mean, that's one issue. For example, on the planning board, there's obviously some major issues with the town administrator with regard to the needs of the planning board. And, you know, he made a persuasive case, and not only did he make a persuasive case, but I personally think he's right, subject to a couple of things. But, I mean, I don't want to make a big federal case out of this. I just wanted to know kind of past practice.
It doesn't seem, it seems like they've done it both.
It was last year was the
both
first
ways.
year, wasn't it, Joe? Last year
That we
was,
did.
that we did.
It's okay, I mean, it worked
We had in
out.
years past, yeah, I think it's, I don't know, I write a lot of things in the column, in my docket,
Yeah.
as we go along,
Yeah, I think so.
so.
That's an awkward way to go back when we have to make our recommendations, to go through handwritten notes and the,
No, but I
Yeah.
personally make my own notes in the docket, so when we do come to a
Yeah.
final vote, I know what we've
So-
discussed with the department head or whomever, and I can go back to that and, as a reference.
should we, two things. Take part of a meeting and recap what we've done up through tonight. And then from there, at the end of each meeting, jot down a recap of that particular meeting so that we have it memorialized in the minutes? Does that make sense? I'm just grasping at things right now, but it just seems
Well, we
that,
haven't done too much. We read the town clerk's budget,
Yeah.
and I wasn't out here, but the town clerk's budget is pretty much the same year in, year out.
and that might very well be the response that we have. The town clerk's budget looks fine the way it is, or with the exception of this line, that line, up, down, whatever. I mean, they don't have to be detailed every line item, but I think summarizing what the presentation was and getting people's thoughts and recommendations as to what, as a budget, as a whole, what we view. Nancy?
You know, I don't mind so much on the town clerk, since I'm going to present my budget to the people anyway. However, it does give them, it gives each department that comes forward to you, if you do a preliminary vote, I mean, it's only preliminary, when you do your final,
Right.
change them, or whatever you do. But I mean, they don't have to keep tracking and following you. They've done their job, they've presented it
Right.
to you, they've made this sale, and they're also going to do that to the council, but at least if they have some kind of idea of where you're standing on it, instead of just leaving here blank. So, in other words, Mr. Hughes, he doesn't know whether you're in agreement
Right.
that you would consider more or not. He's kind of still left blank. And I think it does help the person that comes forward. I'm in a little different case, the way the charter sets me in there, but I think in the departments, it kind of shows some support that you're following what they want, or not.
In the past, when you did record that, or go through those budgets every time and make your recommendations, was, I don't want to say this. I lost my train of thought.
Well, I'll tell you
I'm
what, the
sorry.
thing that bothered me about
Oh, I know
provisional
what I want.
votes, and in watching from the audience over the years, and then being on the committee, was that provisional votes were often taken, and then they were never official. At the end of the process, that, oh, we've already taken a provisional vote on that, oh, we've already taken a vote on that, oh, we've already taken a vote on that. So when it got time to the very end, we were taking votes on the hot button issues, but the rest of them were all kind of left as provisional votes, and then we would take a vote, on the bottom line and what was, the final numbers.
So in other words, it wouldn't be revisited?
It may or may not have been revisited.
Some things were and some things weren't.
Exactly. There was never that, because a provisional vote had already been taken, so therefore a quasi-vote was already in place, so it wasn't crucial to revisit it, to do a final. at
I
the
sort
end.
of like John's suggestion, and I don't know what the practice has been, but the concept of going over, like, the planning board and just sort of saying, basically, no problem, except for those items that the administrator has totally knocked out. And just to remind us that that was sort of it.
Just to, now, in that process, did any of the department heads or so on stay for the end of the meeting and hear the discussion, or they just left as they do and we did the discussion after at the end of the meeting among ourselves?
It wasn't, after a department comes in,
Mhm.
there is usually, there was maybe a provisional vote taken, but there was very little discussion.
Okay,
It was just a provisional vote, and it was, 99% of the time, it was as the town administrator recommends.
Mhm.
Or I would say almost 100% of the time, as the town administrator recommends.
and,
So there was no budget committee discussion. The department heads come, they present their budget, there's back and forth during the course of discussing the line items. At the end of the department, provisional vote, aye, as recommended by the town administrator, and then the next department, then everybody goes home.
and taken down as part of the minutes and recorded as part of the minutes, or not?
Yes, provisional vote,
Okay.
as recommended
Okay.
by the town
So
administrator.
that goes back to the department head or whoever the presenter was with the minutes, and he or she knows.
Well, they
what-
know because they were here.
But they don't know what we decided at the end, if they're not here.
No, that's very true, nor did they then.
Okay, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
They just
I mean,
found
at
out-
the end, if you want to know what our final decisions are, you better come.
Well, he can answer the question.
Well, it's in the minutes.
What do you want to ask?
That was my point.
Oh, he was on the
Okay.
budget.
Okay.
He was chairperson. He can ask Steve.
We were missing you.
He was chairperson of the budget committee.
Steve, when Steve was here, he knows, now if we summarize his presentation and our concerns, and he gets the minutes, he knows what our concerns are,
Can't share this
and,
with you, Deb.
something like that. I don't know that when we're sitting here, we have to have 5, 7 people, depending on how many presentations we have, to sit here the whole night.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
That's what
I have no difficulty with, doing provisional votes on a budget for a department where there are no issues, and then saying, we're not going to take a vote on the planning board budget because there are issues in it.
Right.
And leave that in the minutes,
That could live.
All right, well, think
instead of
over,
trying to enumerate
think
all
over
the
the
different
comments.
issues.
Think over what's been talked about.
If
Go
we
ahead.
could, I'd like to ask David why
Yeah.
they didn't do provisional, and why they did that.
Since you were a founding member of the Budget Committee, what's been the discussion on having, taking provisional votes along the way?
We've always done provisional votes.
Thank you, David, I thought you always.
Yes, we did.
That's why I asked it.
No, we didn't last year.
We didn't do it last year.
No, it's only a year.
Okay, well, prior years, definitely we did provisional
Yeah.
votes.
Okay. And you did it at the end of each meeting?
I just walked in and I caught Laura's. The departments that you think are okay, we did provisional votes, and the ones that you might have come back, because you can recall these departments. But you can take provisional votes on all of them, as you're going along.
But even if you want somebody to come back, you can take a provisional vote.
Absolutely.
And identify those particular areas that you have concerns about, so that they would know if they could call back
Correct.
Didn't you take
Because
them right
to
when
have-
the department was here?
No, we didn't take them right when the department was here, but after the departments were all done,
Proposal is, it sort of goes, if we have questions, that we need more information, not to take one, but on ones that are pretty clear cut, just get it out of the way. We're not going to take a provisional vote, and probably won't be the final.
Okay.
And I would name, if we're not taking it, what our issues are, so we don't
And,
forget
Right, so we
that.
can go back and revisit those,
Yeah.
those particular lines.
Let me raise one issue from a open meeting requirement, and that is that if we're going to take provisional votes,
It should have been in the,
it should be, the agenda.
Absolutely.
Should so reflect that we may.
Absolutely.
Any given budget.
That will be a line item in there from now on at the end of the meeting.
It was
Yeah.
standard on our agendas
Yeah.
from.
So,
And while we're on the agenda, I notice this is dated, not the minute, the agenda is dated the 5th. Is this what gets published? It isn't.
Yes,
It is.
yeah.
Okay, so this is on the secretary's.
Secretary's desk, yes.
Thank you, Madam.
And the website, and the library, and at the town hall.
Okay, but there's no changes,
Just like this.
just like that. Okay,
Cut and pasted.
perfect.
just for information, I make up the agenda, and it goes out generally to Deb and Laura to just make sure that I've covered the items that have come up, and if there's anything else, if there's anything that I missed, and then put it out.
Could you, in the future, send it to all of us?
I can send it to everybody. I just kind of wanted to stay away from waiting, and I'm getting...
No, just as a matter of notice.
Okay, sure.
I got it.
Well, I sent them out.
I can email.
No, I didn't get it.
Oh,
He sent it. I got an email.
Yeah, because I sent it to everybody.
I got one off the town site, too.
Yeah.
No, I got an email.
Thing, it's just cut and pasted.
Yeah, I got a separate email with the agenda attached. I'm pretty sure I saw Louise's email on there.
I know your name is on there because I counted how many.
Oh, yeah,
How come that's so?
you're very good.
I counted, the only one,
Your spam.
Maybe it's usually roll.
well, that may be, because the only one that wasn't named, that wasn't on there was Alex.
But kind of following through on Laura's thoughts, just speaking for myself, if I start with the town clerk budget, I don't see any issues there. The probate court, no issues. Municipal court, no issues. Board of canvassers, no issues. Again, from my standpoint, I am bothered a little bit by the financial town referendum where we don't make any provisions if there has to be a runoff. So I would hesitate on that one. But
There was something on
That's kind of why I see stuff, I think, recap what we've done so far after tonight, because so many of them will be no issues, no issues, no issues. Obviously, we have a couple of issues from tonight's.
Yeah, it can get more difficult.
Yeah.
More
Oh, yeah, and I think we will. So if we can get a recap on before we start the town administration budget presentation, I think we can then, every week goes from there, I think it'll be a heck of a lot easier to recap.
we didn't. Says we
Does
don't.
anybody know if after tonight, the town administrator will be here?
Oh, yes, he'll be here Monday.
So I don't know which.
We won't.
Well, he'll
I know what you mean. So it's his budget, isn't it, actually? Yes.
No, I believe the town
Town council.
council budget is, what you have is the recommendations of the town administrator.
Right.
But the council continues to mold it to what they want. He should keep adjusting.
No, on the schedule is what John is.
Yeah, on the
It's
schedule.
on the schedule, if you want to move on to the next agenda item.
Okay, so next week on the schedule is this town administrator right here?
Town administrator, yes, that section.
Well, it says town council, town administrator, town hall, legal services, audit of town accounts, employee, special retirement, insurance, social security, unemployment, unfunded liability, budget committee, and street lights. Now,
So maybe we can ask Denise, and that would fit in, fit in with the financial
fit in with the
services.
financial. But who presents all of those? Is that the town administrator?
Yes.
Yes, I think what
So,
you read there.
so the town council comes in first? Do they,
No,
they don't
this
come
is
in?
the town council budget. They don't necessarily present it here themselves, the administrators speak for them, but they will have told them what to put in it on their workshops.
So do I still leave town council on the agenda, or do I
Yes,
go right with
town
town
council.
administrator?
No, town council, because they have a budget section.
Yeah.
But nobody from the town council is going to be here to present it.
Town administrator.
That's what I mean. Okay, so leave it the way it is.
And some,
I had Denise, though, 'cause I
It's
think
just this. It's just this.
her budget is quick, and then it's debt service.
and sometimes town council members will come.
Instead of.
That are on that schedule, that's all it is.
Well, then why do I have them all listed? Why don't I just put town administrator?
And the treasurer.
Because that's reflecting each one on your docket.
Okay.
If you really want to know, it goes by the account numbers in the accounting system.
That's fine. Not worth discussing anymore. It'll come out just exactly the way it was last year. That's easier.
I would add the ones that you can't.
Oh, I will,
I'd re-add the code enforcer, the planning, and get the administrators' view on it.
well, I definitely want to get,
Well, that'll come up anyway, I think.
that seems like a busy agenda. I don't know if it is or not.
What?
No?
Treasurer? Town
Council, town administrator, town hall, legal service, da-dum.
Yep.
It's not.
It's not.
So putting the town treasurer in next week is fine also? Okay.
Yeah, what are you going to talk about? Social Security is Social Security.
Well, I didn't know. It kind of looked bland. That's why I was wondering about why.
No, yeah, it should be fun to put the treasurer.
So the only people I have next week are town administrator and the treasurer.
But you're
If
covering
you
a lot
look
of
on
bases.
this, on your schedule,
Yeah, they change that all around.
Yeah, but you're right. The only thing
and you look
The only
on
thing next week is the town administrator, who's going to cover all of those, I guess. Is that right, Nancy?
Cover all of what?
Unless the code.
Town hall, legal services, audit of town, or the audit of town accounts might slip down to Denise.
If you look at this, if you look at the preliminary schedule that I passed out.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you look at the January 29th. It's all of those items.
Right.
And that's the one that we swapped, that's one that we swapped off with Nancy.
Gotcha, okay.
So we'll put the town treasurer in there.
Okay.
And so the only two people that have been actually going to make presentations are the town administrator and the town treasurer. Am I read that right?
Handle all those others, yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, sometimes the administrator will ask a department head to be present. So if there's a level of questions that he's or she is not familiar
But
with,
there aren't any department heads in that whole group.
they're going to talk,
Legal
Tights
services,
may come. Andy Tights came last year.
the mayor may come.
Yep.
You don't know for sure.
so, right, if he does, he does. He can talk about legal expenses, but by and large, everything there is town administrator and town treasurer.
Right.
Okay. All right, I got it.
And you're better off mentioning more, so that if somebody does speak, then somebody can't come back and say, well, John, you didn't have on your agenda, you were going to cover more information,
Such as?
such as
Listing those departments in.
listing the departments individually.
So that it's,
Oh, you mean the fact that they're here on the, okay, yeah,
Like you did on
that's
this
fine.
week's agenda.
Yeah, that's fine. I have no problem with that, I just,
Yep.
I just ask sometimes to just find out if, again, as I said, tradition unhindered by progress, you never do anything different because that's what it's just always done before. That's not always the best way.
You're absolutely,
But
absolutely right.
that's fine. Okay, new business, next week, town administration. That's Thursday. Saturday is the police department site visit, and I guess we can discuss that next Thursday as well, but
What time is that?
I think I got it for 9.
That's what, yeah, that's what you have.
I think it's 9. And somebody just needs to clue me in what we do.
They give you a tour of their facility and
Listen, look and listen.
tell you what they need money for, why, and so on and so forth.
So we tour the police department building, that's it?
Yeah.
Well, you tour the building,
And
it's an
offers coffee and
It's an opportunity to inspect the infrastructure, see what upgrades chief is asking for, what you think needs to happen.
Spend time in the schools too, John, if you want.
That's right. Well, see new equipment.
Seen the inside of one already, we've seen one, you've seen them all.
No, if the police chief is asking for new equipment, it's an opportunity to see why he needs that new equipment, and it can be very educational.
Just now, with the fire department, do you meet up at North Tiverton is that the site?
Normally.
Okay.
So is the fire department is on a Sunday?
No,
Okay, so do we have the date wrong?
One night.
Yeah, it should be the 23rd.
It should be the 21st, okay.
24. 21st.
21st is the Saturday.
And on here, the 22nd.
Okay. My bad.
I go by that.
Must have used the old church calendar or something. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that the minutes of the last meeting be approved as delivered to us.
I'll second that.
All in favor? All opposed?
I have to abstain, that wasn't here.
One
I
abstention.
abstain too.
2 abstentions.
Actually, 3 extensions.
3 abstentions.
That 4.
What do you make it 4?
I read the minutes, but I wasn't here, so. Right.
That's right, there was just 6 of us here last week. So it's 6, 0, and 4 abstentions?
Yes.
Okay. And 1 absent.
That brings us to the point where I'll make a motion to adjourn.
That sounds good. Anybody second it?
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? So voted.